Spoilers ahead for The Shining. Hey everybody, welcome once again to another episode of Screenwriters Rewatch, the series where we venture into IMDb's top 200 film list, pull out some classics and see whether or not they deserve their place in film history. But before we get to that, please make sure that you pop along to our other socials and things like that. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all of that stuff. You can go check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course on YouTube. And why not pop over to the Script Department website? We do loads of stuff over there. It's very exciting. And don't forget to keep your ears and your eyes open for the end of the episode where we'll be revealing next week's rewatch. Today, I'm joined by Oisin. Hey, man. And we're going to be finding out whether all work and no play really does make Jack a dull boy. And when Screenwriters Rewatch The Shining, written by Diane Johnson and Kubrick himself, of course, based on the novel by Stephen King. Now, when we get to the end of this frozen maze, I'll be asking you whether or not you think this deserves to go into the script department vaults. But before we get going on that, I'll start by saying welcome for the first time to Screenwriters Rewatch. It's very much fun. And also, tell me about your baggage with The Shining. When you're coming into this rewatch, what did you bring with
you? So The Shining is my all-time favorite movie. It's something I could sit down and watch umpteen times, back to back. I'm actually going through about 3 or 4 DVDs of it, just wearing it out.
Wow.
It is the movie that one of those you have to watch whenever it's on.
Yeah,
that's my movie. So I rewatched it again for this, and looking forward to talk about it.
That's exciting. This is only my second time through watching this. I watched it about 10 years ago when I was studying to be an actor, and it scared the living daylights out of me because I rather stupidly watched it in a pitch black room at my in-laws' house, my now in-laws' house actually, if I remember rightly. So place I didn't really know. It was all a bit frightening. So yeah, it's only my second time through. And it's been quite an interesting experience, kind of coming to this now, because I never actually considered the quality of the movie before. I just looked at it from the kind of the point of view. So it's quite interesting looking at it with a critical eye on this occasion. So when you were rewatching it this time around, was there anything jumped out at you? Was there anything you kind of missed before? Because it's one of those films I think you can kind of come back to again and again and notice new things.
Well, I first saw The Shining when I was 15 years of age. Not that I lived in a lax household where I was left to watch these kind of movies. It was on one New Year's Eve in Ireland, and I went to bed, and it was on a terrestrial channel New Year's Eve, and I saw it there for the first time, and obviously had a lasting effect on me for me to say it's my favorite movie. But I've since watched every editor is of it, every version is of it, and I also foolishly, well, for me, watched Room 237. That had all the theories about what the meaning of it is, and every time I watch it, I try and see, can I find a new meaning? Can I find something else? And I stumbled onto a new theory for me that we might discuss later on. So I did find something new in it that we might discuss as we go through the pod.
Okay, great. It's something I'm excited to talk about. Is kind of the meaning behind things. But you're right. We'll get to that. What is it about the film that you think is so enduring? What helps you come back to it? And for the record, actually, we should say Oisin is a director. And so that's his background. We normally come to this. We normally talk to screenwriters on this, but it's interesting to have your perspective on The Shining, because The Shining, because I think it's such a director's movie, and it'd be interesting to see what you think. What keeps you coming back?
I think it's just the dedication that Stanley Kubrick had to the intricacies in the hotel. There's stuff, again, going back to Room 237, there's a theory about the Apollo landing, and they show a shot where young Danny is playing on one of those carpets, which we all have embedded in our mind, those patterns, that he's playing one way, and it's open. There's a hexagon on the pattern, and it's he's playing towards an open end. Then when he's doing the coverage and comes up to get another shot, he's actually playing towards a closed end. And I don't think the having read about Kubrick and doing reading essays and video essays on Kubrick, I don't think that was a mistake. I don't think it's a continuity error. I think it's done purposely. And what keeps attracting me to the movie is trying to figure out why he's done that and why he has chosen that one. I mean, the idea of, you mentioned it in the intro, all work and no play. For the German market, for the French market, that was done in phrases that were used in Germany and France that had the same meaning as all work and no play. So
Is that right?
They shot multiple takes of all work, that cutaway of all work no plays for the French market, for the German market, so that it makes sense.
Wow.
Because the phrase all work no play may not have the same meaning in France, Germany.
Yeah, sure. That's so interesting. I didn't know that.
I want to caveat that by saying that could be an urban legend that's grown up around it. But sure. I'd like to believe it's true for me.
Yeah. I mean, why not? It was a famously kind of attention to detail, with direction there. So I think it makes sense. Is it right? I think I know that that particular sequence, was it Kubrick himself who sat and typed out all of those things? I'm sure I heard that somewhere.
Well, again, if you believe the lore about The Shining, I don't think Kubrick was too far from his typewriter. If you were to believe the stories from the set, that there was a saying that Jack Nicholson didn't learn his lines because they were constantly being written. That he would go to bed with a certain set of sides and wake up in the morning with rewritten notes or rewritten dialogue for him to learn.
Stressful.
So I think Kubrick's daughter, that she made a documentary about the making of. I think that's actually a scene in it that he says he throws away the lines just because they're going to be different in the morning when he wakes up.
Yeah.
So as I say, I don't think his typewriter was too far away from on set. So yeah, that could be true.
It could be. I mean, I think you get a sense through the film that there's a dark heart to The Shining, without doubt, but it feels like a pretty stressful. It's quite a stressful film to watch, I'd say. But you watch kind of watching Jack Nicholson's descent into madness, I suppose, or being overtaken by, or whatever it is. I mean, what was your reading on that? Because my reading of it, I suppose, is this being consumed by the hotel, and you have these slightly dated idea of it being built on the Native American graveyard, which I think doesn't age so well, but we can look at that later. But is he being consumed, or is he what do you think?
My own personal reading after years of watching it and dissecting it is he's not being consumed by the hotel. He's a victim of circumstance. He's put himself in the situation where he's away from alcohol. It's implied that he has alcohol issues, and he's been consumed by his own demons now, that he has to face the fact that he's got to spend all that time alone in the hotel without his dependency.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
and he's being consumed by his own personal demons more so than the hotel, and he's projecting those demons to give him to be someone outside of him that he's able to blame. That's the hotel to blame rather than Jack himself.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you. That's interesting. So in terms of that, then where does Danny and the Shining of Danny kind of come into that? Is these two kind of parallel threads there, in your opinion?
Well, it's implied in the story that something had happened somewhere in the past, that perhaps Jack had abused Danny physically. So I think that is Danny's escape, that he's created a world that he's protecting himself from his father's rage. And then the whole idea of himself and Scatman Crothers' character having that moment, I think that's more childhood kind of imagination, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm with you. Yeah, it's interesting because the this being kind of a screenwriting podcast, it's interesting to look at the script here. And I said before we started recording, I don't think the script is necessarily the most compelling element of The Shining, just because. And you mentioned that anecdotal thing there of Kubrick rewriting and things like that, and whatnot. I think you feel that. I think you feel the that element of this. But I do wonder, when the thing that jumped out to me this time is that I felt that Jack in character, Jack in name, his descent, as it were, happened quite abruptly. He was already this kind of quite strange, creepy guy, for want of a better phrase. But he driving through the Alps and everything like that. The Alps, the I don't know what mountains they are. The mountains, we'll call them.
Colorado mountains, isn't it?
Are they Colorado? Oh, yeah, that would make sense. But yeah, anyway, you driving through these mountains and everything, and he's already quite a little tightly wound, shall we say? And I think that's a really interesting choice from a writing perspective for a character like that, because I think the more obvious choice would be to have him be a little bit more of perhaps a devoted father, and to see that a little bit more gradually happen. But Kubrick doesn't do that. Kubrick kind of, and I haven't read the book. I don't know what the differences are between the book and the film. But it feels as though you've already got an unhinged character, and you're putting him into a situation which is going to make him more unhinged. It's an interesting choice. What do you think of that?
Well, just a touch there really quickly on the book. Stephen King has disowned this movie. He thinks that this movie bears nothing to his actual novel. So they actually made a mini series that Stephen King overlooked more and had more hand in the writing, which is closer to what the book actually what he intended in the book. So reading the book and watching this movie may not go well together.
Yeah,
you may not get many answers from it. Yeah, that's interesting. Again, I mean, look, as we said, The Shining, you get something new from it every time. And you just mentioned everyone being an unhinged character. They're driving across, it's a yellow Beetle they're driving, they're talking about where they're going, and they mentioned the Dahmer Party, which was a resettlement. It's a true story. They did a resettlement wagon convoy going across from during the gold rush, I think, in America, and they resorted to cannibalism. And there was a moment in the car where a 5-year-old child starts mentioning cannibalism, and Jack doesn't bat an eyelid, and he says, "Oh, he saw it on TV. It's okay." Now, this is 1980s. You wouldn't think that kind of content would be as free as it would be now with YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting you say that. That he's so blasé about his young child understanding what cannibalism is and how blasé he was that he saw it on TV, that it's fine.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I think it's a choice, and I think perhaps the reason behind it is that you're on edge as the audience. That long opening shot, it's so drawn out, and so and the dialogue is delivered in quite a heightened way, and
it's shot in such a voyeuristic way as well. We're not with them in the car, we're overhead looking down on them. We feel like we're following these guys on a journey, but do we really want to be with them on the journey? The fact he shot it so wide and so high, is it something we want to see as an audience?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I hadn't considered that, because it is very much like that, isn't it? You do feel like you're intruding. You feel as though you're kind of you kind of have to peer. So you have to kind of peer around the camera to see, what's going on down here. And it's that's, I think, my biggest takeaway from watching it this time around, is just a feeling of being unsettled. I felt very unsettled coming out the other end of this, and knowing knowing a little bit of the context of how it was shot as well. The very famous sequence with the baseball bat. And knowing, that some of the things that have come out about it since, and the way that was done, does that? Life and art, I suppose, it's good to try and separate, but in terms of what that was as a director, how does that take off some of the shine, for want of a, excuse the pun?
Well, again, as you asked, what did I bring to this? I was reading back on, again, passages from the Kubrick books I have, and just articles that I've read in the past with Gareth Brown, who was the Steadicam operator, and watching videos of Shelley Duvall's descent into madness on set. And paraphrasing a bit here, but Kubrick has had notebooks with phrases that he'd gathered throughout his years. And one of the ones he'd highlighted was the future holds no answer for the past. So if we're looking back with 2022 glasses on something in 1980, should we comment on it? Yes, we should. Can we change it? Not really. Can we learn from it? Of course. Should it have happened? No. Would it happen now? Absolutely not. So Shelley Duvall was a victim of our time as much as Stanley Kubrick was of his time as well. And at that point, he just come off Barry Lyndon, was a bit technically a success, commercially not great. So he was coming off a bit of a commercial failure. Maybe he felt he had to prove himself again, paraphrase, just trying to get into the head of what the director was doing. That he just felt he had to push the actors more. Now, I mean, Shelley Duvall was not his first choice. I don't think Shelley Duvall was high on his list. I think Shelley Duvall came from the studio. And again, coming back to the script, Diane Johnson wrote that in the first draft of the script, there was a lot more there with Wendy Torrance and a lot more interaction. But Kubrick wasn't happy with Duvall's performance and her delivery. So as the drafts started changing, became more and more contained to what we see is a slightly unhinged wife. As much as Jack is an unhinged husband, it comes across as she's almost pushing him towards having this breakdown, So yeah, it's a bit of a blot in this copybook how that came across,
For sure, there's a definite unhinged quality to the performance, and it does feel a little bit. It's interesting, even in those early moments, you do feel a little bit like every line is almost being delivered through gritted teeth, and it's this kind of thing of like, "Hello, darling. Yes, it's lovely to see you today." And there's something really kind of forced about the way they speak. It's and I wonder. I wonder if that was a choice or if that was due to circumstances. I imagine it was a choice.
Again, coming back to what I said earlier about Kubrick being the perfectionist, I don't think it was done. I don't think Kubrick would have allowed Jack Nicholson or Shelley Duvall that amount of freedom to make those very important creative choices. I think he would have been very much involved in the delivery of the lines and how he wanted it. And it's clear that this family are running from something. It's clear that they're running from something. It's always alluded to what it was. There's that famous scene in room 237 where Jack meets the young lady coming out of the bath, and straight away he kisses her. Are they running from the fear that Jack has had back in the city? Are they running from his alcoholism? So there is that strained relationship that we are unaware of. That we're unaware of the cause of, but it's very clear that they don't have a stereotypical happy American family life that I think Shelley Duvall's character wants.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. There is this element, I think, in the it's interesting because it's in that last photo, that last shot of the photograph and everything like that. There is kind of an imagery thing there. This is a moment distilled in a photograph, and perhaps her character would like something a little bit more like that. The time as well it's written, made in the 80s, the kind of the nuclear family idea and this perfect idea of America. It's really interesting. Talking a little bit about the cinematography, I think that's one of those things that the Shining's known for. I think it's endlessly. We tend to we quite often come back around to sort of Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane parodies and things like that because they tend to happen quite a lot with these great things. Is that a kind of film lover himself, and that's the sequence where Danny is on his tricycle and he's riding through the hotel. I got chills watching that this time around because it is that thing where I think it's so embedded in the zeitgeist to see it in that way. You just go, oh wow, this is special. What is it as a director that what is it? What is that? What does it for that? Why?
The one thing that's coming into my head straight away when you mentioned that sequence is the sound design. And
interesting.
That he's driving along and he's going from carpet and he's onto parquet wood, and I can close my eyes and I can hear it. And again, it's unsettling. We're going from smooth to rough, smooth to rough, smooth to rough. It comes around the corner, and there's the Grady twins. So it's building us up for something. Now, again, I said it earlier that I was reading articles and reading stuff about this. Gareth Brown, who was the Steadicam operator on it, said that he would they would be doing a scene, and Kubrick would say nothing, maybe 14 takes, and he would only start giving notes that were in any way decent after 20 takes. So you can imagine the tension that was on set when they're trying to get this steady cam shot of a wheel of a tricycle going around and around and around. And Stanley Kubrick is sat at his video village watching this and going, yeah, okay, we'll go again. We go again for 20, 25, 30 takes until he gets to he wanted 3 or 4 perfect takes before he went to the edit, because he wasn't editing as he went. He edited all as a complete movie at the end.
So he couldn't go back and get those reshoots. He couldn't go back and do those things.
He had to have it all in the can before he went there. But I mean, again, Gareth Brown he had just come off of Rocky 1, I think, where they kind of pioneered the Steadicam movements, and he was hired to shoot Rocky 2. But once he arrived on Kubrick's set, he was kept in London for a year, and he actually missed the start of Rocky 2's production. Again, could be a bit of Kubrick lore, could be something there, but he himself said that at the end of the first afternoon, he knew this wasn't going to be a turn up and shoot it kind of gig. And he says that after a year there, he realized it wasn't more about the composition, it was more about everything else in the frame for Kubrick, and he realized he had to keep going and going again.
That's so interesting. Yeah. What I almost feel bad asking you this question, because it's because you love this. What doesn't work so well? Is this film perfect? Because it sits, and the reason I asked this question, because when we come to wrap this up, we'll look at whether or not it deserves its spot. It's currently number 60 on the IMDb top 200 film list, which is very high. It's in the top 100 films of all time according to them, and we use that list just for the sake of argument. What if you had a gun to your head? What do you feel doesn't quite track with The Shining?
If gun to my head, I think the Dick Halloran story. Okay, I get what his motivation is in the structure of the writing. I get he has to be the outside hero to come in and try and save. I get all that. But I think if you take his character out and make it a family drama amongst the 3 of them, and just leave the 3 of them there on their own in the hotel, does become a stronger story. Does become a stronger piece.
I totally agree with you, because that's something that really jumped out of me, is that I enjoyed his character and I liked him there, but he is. The moment you get the moment we start getting shots of of outside the hotel, and also when we go to the police station, we hear the radio, we see the radio operator. Is that not more powerful to have just the sound and the disconnect and things like that, and just the radio coming through, and with that character coming in and out, he does turn up just to be killed. And I suppose it is this idea of, don't worry guys, help's coming. And then you immediately plow that down. You subvert that expectation and whatnot. So I it's interesting you say that, because that was exactly the thing that popped into my head as well, asking that question.
Yeah, no, it's not a perfect movie. I don't think any movie could be classed as a perfect movie. You're always going to find something to pick at. There's moments in it for me. There's that scene where we're coming up the stairs, and Wendy looks down the hall, and we see, is it a bear? Is it a dog engaged in sexual act with?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, was that needed? Okay, we're trying to show the unsettlement of Wendy, but we're already in our head. We know that her husband has descended into madness. Is allowing Wendy see the ghosts of the hotel, does that take away from Jack's descent? Does it make it more of a horror movie than it makes it a psychological horror, which I like to call it, seeing Jack being the only person to see these, and by extension Danny having that moment in room 237, but for Wendy to actually see that moment, does that take away from that that is Jack's psychosis.
I would argue, yeah, it does, because I think I found it quite jarring, that moment. It kind of, it takes you away from it a little bit, I think, because you end up, well, for that exact reason, because it takes you away from Jack's psychosis. And Jack and Danny seeing things is one thing, but Wendy is sort of is that outside character. She's sort of she up to this, she's grounded, exactly, yeah, and she's reacting quite reasonably to everything. Her husband starts yelling at her and whatnot, and she quite understandably is a little bit ticked off about that, but is also in her way. And you mentioned them running from something, and that kind of through gritted teeth kind of conversation. They're trying to make it work. She's trying to make it work, and so it doesn't necessarily go from immediately. But I think she reacts in kind of a normal way, and I suppose she's sort of an audience avatar in that sense. So to see her seeing that, it does kind of make you question, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing here, and what are these rules? But I think that happens a lot with this film, though, is that I think the moment you feel as though you've got a grasp on what's going on and what the rules are, something else happens to kind of throw that out the window. Do you find that?
I do. I mean, there's even stuff like when we see the first exterior shot of the hotel, there's no maze. Then we come back and there's a maze there. There's that famous theory when we come into Ullman's office for the first time, where Ullman's office says there shouldn't be a window there, that it should just be a box room. So Kubrick is constantly playing with her expectations and subventing what we think is going to happen based on what we know the rules of a horror movie are.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's so interesting. I'd not considered that. I mean, the whole sequence in the maze. That is a great moment, a great bit of writing, because you foreshadow it earlier on. You set that up to with Wendy and Danny going through the maze, and you got those lovely those things everywhere. And I remember where I was watching this time, I was thinking, what are those things indented in the maze and everything? And then you see it at the end. Oh, they're lights. And we get that wonderful lighting and everything like that. It's a great way of setting up the payoff of the film, and then of course Jack's demise coming at the hands of the maze and at the hands of nature itself. What is that a just end for that character, and why do we think he ends up there? Do you think, if a just end is even important? I don't know that it is really, but
did he end up there? Do we know he's ended up there? Is it a just end for his character? Again, coming back to the rewrite of the movie, that is not how Kubrick wanted it to end. Kubrick had another scene with Wendy and Danny in the hospital. Wendy recovering from it, and Danny there, and they're talking about Jack, who was never found. Now, in the book of it and the TV adaptation, which Mike Flanagan then brought to fruition, Doctor Sleep, Jack blew up the hotel to kill the demons. He went out to the boiler room and blew up the hotel. Is it a just end for Jack Torrance? I think it is. I genuinely do, and the reason, I can't see any other end for him. He has to die at the hotel, succumbing to his own demons. That hurting his family is what's got him here, and he's now lost in his maze of his head. But as I say, is he really dead? Do we know he's dead? We just see him frozen there. I come back to the Simpsons parody where they're stuck there. They're watching TV because they can't get TV, and they find a little TV, portable TV, and I think it's Letterman comes on. They try and turn it off, but they're all frozen together.
yeah.
In another parody of it, Yeah, I don't know what other ending would be satisfactory for Jack. Would it have been nice to see him, instead of having that as a still photograph, to see Jack Torrance walking amongst those people in the Golden Ball? Might have been nice, might have been different. But going on what we have, I think it's the only end that he could have gotten.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I'm gonna have to go and watch this series. I didn't know about this. That's really interesting. I have to go. So Doctor Sleep is in the Ewan McGregor film. Is that a sequel to
Yeah.
the series rather than the film?
The book is a sequel to the book.
Yeah, sure.
But I think the issue, and for me, Doctor Sleep has a few issues. Is that Mike Flanagan, who wrote and directed it, had to keep the Stephen King fans happy
Yeah.
by staying true to the books, and he also had to keep the Kubrick fans happy by staying true to the canon and lore he had invented for the overlap.
That's tough.
So yeah, I mean, it does have issues because of trying to fall between two stools.
Yeah.
I think that's where the biggest issue comes from in that movie.
That's interesting. I haven't seen that one. I wanted to watch The Shining in isolation for this. So I'm going to go and watch the Doctor Sleep, mainly because I just love looking at Ewan McGregor. To be honest with you, I just just always happy to watch anything he's in. But that's interesting. Now we'll wrap up shortly, but I've got to ask. I've got to ask because I think it's a question that many film lovers and filmmakers and those who are nothing to do with film but just quite like that one. The ending, the photograph on the wall. What the hell is going on, in your opinion?
In my opinion, that's just more of Jack's projection. That's just more. He always was the caretaker. He'd built up this Jack Torrance persona, and he was just projecting more that he was always in this hotel, and this hotel was always part of him.
So that's in his mind, then. That's
all in his mind, I think. Well, but see, I mean, this is a perfect time to bring up the new theory. I think I may have discovered.
Yes.
Or just this new theory that I've come across myself, and others may have seen it before me, is that perhaps it's not Danny who has the mental illness or Jack, but it's actually Wendy Torrance.
Oh,
that Wendy. Everything is told from Wendy's point of view. So Wendy is walking by that photograph at the end and seeing Jack there, projecting her mental. There's a scene where Danny is watching TV, and it's just static on it, and we're as an audience we're watching Danny and Wendy watching TV. But are they watching TV? Or is this just Wendy watching a memory that she has of them watching TV somewhere else?
okay.
Are they arguing in that scene of all work and no play and the famous bat scene? Did that actually happen, or was that a mismemory or a projection or a psychotic episode that Wendy's having?
That's really interesting, yeah.
The hug that Jack and Danny have is shot from a third person's point of view. Doesn't feel like the audience's point of view. It feels like Wendy's watching them, and it's Wendy projecting this outward from her head, and it's a memory. There's it's another continuity error. Well, it said an error, but I don't think in that scene where Wendy comes up to Jack, there's a chair behind his left shoulder. And if you watch it again, once we go back to Wendy's single, back to Jack's single, it's gone. So is that Wendy imagining how she wanted Jack to answer? Is that Wendy forgetting the smaller details in the room, but remembering the larger details of how she wanted the conversation to go?
Yeah. It's very
But then does that explain room 237? Or is room 237 again just something she's concocted to keep the family together?
To keep the family together, yeah, I see what you mean. It's because does she know about the last caretaker, or the previous caretaker killing his family? Is she aware of that? I don't think he tells her.
No, but again, is that something that we know they're running from something. We don't know what they're running from.
Sure.
Is there information that Wendy has that she's letting us know through Jack and the conversations?
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah.
Was she a third person watching this interview, or was she a third person there getting this information as well? And we're hearing of it through Jack, which is how she would have heard it.
Which is how she would have heard it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay, so you have the unreliable narrator of Wendy rather than yeah.
And that would make sense then with Ullman's office with the window and the maze outside. And did a maze ever actually exist, or was it Wendy imagining what a maze would look like here?
Yeah.
You know, it's just again the movie that you, I mean, as you said at the beginning, you could take so much away from it every time you watch it, and next time we discuss it, I might have a completely different take on it again. You know.
I think we should. I think this will be one of those that we can revisit in a year or so. See, come back to and kind of and look at it again, because it is an endlessly, like the maze itself. It is endlessly sort of twists and full of twists and turns, and there's so much to kind of look at and to try and understand with this film. It, like I say, it unsettled the hell out of me rewatching it this time. So I think I need to go back again and have another look.
Well, you are in great company there, because one of the actors that the studio wanted to play Jack Torrance was Robert De Niro, and he said that after
Ah,
watching that movie, he had nightmares for a month. So
oh,
you were in great company on that one.
I'll take it. I'm happy with that. That is nice cup to be in. What can we learn from The Shining from a writing point of view, from a directorial point of view? What does The Shining give us today on the spot?
I think I think I mean the most obvious is how to treat your cast, how to speak to people, how to listen to people. I mean that's as I say. Can we change it? No. Can we learn from it? Absolutely. Would you get away with speaking to an actor like that on set these days, or putting an actor through what you're putting what he put her through? No, you really wouldn't. So that's one thing that you could definitely take from it, from a directing point of view. The writing is your forte. So what did you
Mm.
take from the writing of it?
I took there's a structural element here which I think they play jumper up with. I think that you can tell this was rewritten on the fly. I think there's an element of it where that you I think you can feel, and I think it helps the film as well. It's quite rare in this kind of situation that that kind of disorganization would be preferable. But I think you can feel it, and I think you can feel in the DNA of the movie that this has been kind of, and I didn't know that coming in here. I didn't know that coming into this that was going on, and so I'm kind of answering questions for myself that I had when watching, or you're answering the questions for me actually. And I think that that's the thing to learn here. I don't know what the lesson is for a writer in that, because in fact, don't do it that way. Do it, write your script, have your structure, do all these things. But I think maybe the lesson is sometimes it's okay to invent on the fly and to be creative, and sometimes you've got to take your heavily. This has come up a few times in conversations like this and other ones that we've had on the podcast. We as writers are, it can be a very technical endeavor, writing a film and structuring it and things like that. And I think it's important for a writer to kind of get over that and get over themselves a bit and just tell the story. And I think that is maybe the lesson from this film from a writing point of view, is sometimes just do what feels right, and that's the way to do it. However, that is kind of taken hand in hand with your point there about treating your cast, because I don't know that you'd get a lot in TV, rewrites of sides coming up very quickly and things like that, as you well know. Um, but I don't know that you get away with it so much on film. Perhaps I'm wrong. What do you think?
Um, well, yeah, I mean, obviously, as we've spoken in the past, I mean, I hate rewrites just before a scene, and it happens on a daily occurrence in the TV world. In terms of film making now, I'm not sure producers would allow it. You know, in terms of money, would you be allowed rewrite that amount of a film, that over the space of a year while you're making it? Would you be allowed to have those rewrites? Have directors lost control in that sense? I mean, it would probably have to be sent through producers to get to go ahead nowadays, which is a good thing. Which is a good thing. It saves actors having to relearn lines. It saves time in production. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think we should on that point. I think maybe we should look at Gladiator at some point, because that was a film that was quite famously rewritten on the fly, and to a very different outcome, a very different film, almost completely incomparable. from between this and that. But I think it'd be interesting to look at on that point in kind of a little bit more freedom in terms of narrative and writing and things like that. See if there's anything to be learned there. But it's yeah, I think it's an interesting point. Maybe we just need to loosen up. Maybe we just need to lighten up about it. Just just let it happen. Maybe that's the thing.
Just accept it. Just accept it. But it comes back to Kubrick's perfectionist hands controlling everything. Could he let go? Did he know when to let go? He's a better mind than I'll ever be. He's forgotten more than I'll ever know, or he had forgotten more than I'll ever know. So
Sure.
Who am I to argue?
I mean, I guess that's the point, really, isn't it? That he was the man. That man was a genius director. But what could the film? I mean, what could the film have been if he'd stuck to his guns in the first place and just made the film that was on paper to begin with? Would it have been better? We'll never know. It's kind of an academic question, isn't
it? Janet Maislin, I think she's a script doctor, or she's a script consultant. She said that most of I was looking for quotes today about the script because I know you're approaching from a scriptwriting point of view. Most of the alterations in the story which have been changed have improved considerably, have the effect of letting it run deeper.
Okay. Well, there we go. There's the answer.
Yeah. She also called it a shrewd and economical screenplay. Having not read the first draft, I can't attend to those. So who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's an interesting case study in terms of screenwriting, because it is what we ended up with is for sure different to what it began as, which is always the case. You're right, Eddie. I mean, you and I know that we're working on a project, and what we're ending up with is a million miles from where we began. And that's fine. That's how development works. But it's an interesting case study in writing, because there's great moments of structure, and there's also moments where they're not so much. I think that's interesting. Do you think? I mean, I already know the answer to this, and I promise, faithful viewer, at some point we will ask this question about a film that isn't so cut and dry. But do you think The Shining deserves its place in the script department vaults to be protected for all time and shown to our descendants?
Okay, it has been reevaluated. When it first came out, it was nominated for 2 Razzies. It was nominated, so it has been reevaluated in time. Me, myself, if I had the keys to the script department vault, it would take pride of place. I think it should. And the reason is what we discussed earlier, the lessons we have learned, or we can learn from it. It might be filed under watch with caution, maybe. But yeah, it's especially if it's unsettling and gives Robert De Niro nightmares, definitely should be filed under watch with caution.
For sure. I mean, if Robert De Niro's being frightened by it, then that's there's your warning for sure. Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's a unsettling piece of psychological filmmaking, and it is I would totally agree. It deserves its place. For there, do you think it deserves? I mean, of course you don't. You think it'd be number one. How do you find it sitting at number 60 of IMDb?
Well, it's number 1 in my heart. Number 60 on the AFI. You have to balance that with the movies that have come out since, and the AFI list is probably there's probably only a handful of movies older than it in the top 59 before it. So as a fan of the movie, then yeah, 60 seems about right. And of course, it's going to drop a few places in the coming years with the fantastic movies coming out, and when they get reevaluated in time. But I think yeah, 60 is probably where it will be.
Nice one. Oisin, thanks for a great chat. This has been so much fun. I feel better about the film. I feel like I've had some Shining therapy. I say this quite often on these things. To speaking to people about things, I come out the other end feeling relaxed and burdens lifted. So that's good. And I'll go back and watch it, and I'll watch Dr. Sleep as well. So thank you for joining us today. It's been a real treat. for you guys, next time we're going to be looking at The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I'm not sure I'll be around for that one, but somebody will gallantly step into my place to take that on. But in the meantime, go back and check these out. We've got a bunch of these knocking around now. The Shawshank Redemption was the last one we did, and that was a lot of fun. But otherwise, yeah, go back, have a look at the back catalogue, and until next time, we'll see you later. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.